I think we have our first candidate here, Jessica Morse, and I don't see any reason not to turn to her um, earlier than later, if that works for you, Jessica. Would you like to take 3 minutes to introduce yourself to us, and then we'll invite our Northern Chair, Matthew Hilliard, to carry on that conversation a little bit.
Thank you so much. Well, what a joy to be with you, all of you. Thank you for the work you are doing to uplift children in our community. I'm Jessica Morse. I'm running for Congress in California's 3rd congressional district, which is the east suburbs of Sacramento, goes all the way up to Tahoe, and then has a long stretch of the Eastern Sierra. It's basically all the Democrat voting areas of the Sierra Nevada and then the suburbs. So I'm originally from this district, 5 generations deep. So I have a lot of family and extended family in the area, which is really fun. And my parents were both school teachers. And so uplifting youth was a really big part of my upbringing. I spent my summers working as a camp counselor and teaching outdoor education, especially for like at-risk youth, and having you using the love of outdoors to uplift children. And so I always found that that's just a core part of who I am. My dad reminded me the other day even that when I was in college, I went to Ethiopia for a summer working with Save the Children on famine relief work. And on my weekends, I went and volunteered at the AIDS orphanage because all of these little kids just needed a lot of love. And so we would go and sing songs and play games, and because I knew that they just needed to feel like children. And so that's always been a very big part of a core of who I am. And so I'm excited to get into Congress and partner with you on uplifting policies for kids. One of the big things that I'm working on in my district is making sure that we are investing in women's reproductive rights and families. That I am running against a man, Kevin Kiley, who is pushing a national abortion ban. He is and one with no exceptions. He's pushing the Life at Conception Act that would not only ban all abortion, it would also criminalize miscarriage and ban IVF. And so thinking about sort of the impact that has on families and children is dramatic. And so I was able to, we're running in the seat, but I tell everyone in this district, like, I will pass national reproductive rights, and then I will work to make sure that we are investing in tools that make it easier and safer for women to have families and in an environment to raise children, right? Everything from prenatal care, because we know that early childhood development, it starts in the womb, right? That those life indicators start at pregnancy, and that we have to provide that prenatal care. I will be investing in the child tax credit so that we aren't having children living in extreme poverty. I will be working to make sure that childcare, quality childcare, is affordable, that parents aren't having to give up a whole salary to be able to afford quality childcare in this country. And I will be making investments in early childhood development, because some of my career was spent in working in international aid. And one of the best indicators of a country's long-term economic growth is to make how much that country invests in the first 1,000 days of a child's life. And so I recognize how vital that is, that if we want to start thinking about the next generation and the future of our country, and you can sell this to conservatives, right, by saying, hey, this makes fiscal sense. This isn't just like some feel-good social policy. It is foundational to our country's economic growth to be investing in children. My sister used to work at a Head Start in Kentucky, and I saw the range of teachers and support, and want to make sure that that program is not just a daycare program, but actually has pedagogy in it, and that these programs that should be widely available, free, and widely skilled, because children deserve that, and that's good for our country. A little more about me, though. I spent the last 4 years of my career leading the state's efforts on wildfire mitigation and resilience. I was deputy secretary at the California Natural Resources Agency, which is the parent agency for CAL FIRE and the Conservation Corps. And there were a few projects that I worked on that particularly, and I got this huge initiative through, like $3 billion wildfire resilience initiative, so that we could try to get ahead of this fire crisis, even in the hotter and drier conditions we're seeing. And as we've seen, 30 days of 100+ degree weather, everything's dry, everything's dangerous. And so having those tools is vital to saving lives. But one of the things I focused on is I reached out to Department of Education, and I want to focus on this to actually get this across the finish line federally, is making sure that schools are clean air centers. That smoke exposure we are seeing has a disproportionate impact on children, and it causes as lifelong asthma for kids. It can stunt development and growth when they're exposed to PM 2.5. And so I want to make sure that schools are clean air centers, so that when we have periods of smoke exposure, there's a safe place for children to be, and it doesn't interrupt their education. And also that then becomes a foundation for the community if you're needing a safe, clean airspace. Those also end up being cool air centers, right? When you put in that same technology and do that retrofit, it also helps withstand the hot air days, because I was a kid who went to school in trailers, that were just added on because the school didn't have enough, and we sweated it out and in those hot Sacramento summers. And so just wanting to make sure that school is a physically comfortable place for children too. The last thing I'll add is just highlighting the importance of winning this race, because Kevin Kiley, who I'm running against, he's a freshman. He's incredibly vulnerable, right? This is a district that is 65% pro-choice, 63% anti-Trump, and Kiley is running as an anti-choice pro-Trump candidate. So he's out of step with the district. This is a district that Trump only won by 1 percentage point back in 2020. And since then, we've picked up 4 percentage points in Democrat voter registration, and Republicans have lost 4 points. So we know that we have the numbers to flip this seat, and we can do it. And it's urgent that we do it, because Kevin Kiley is right now on the National Education Committee. And he has helped uplift Moms for Liberty candidates to the school boards here in the Sacramento suburbs. He got a slate of them elected in Rockland, California. They in turn started passing book bannings and outing trans children. Kiley has aligned himself with the American Council and something in this area called Destiny Church that is pushing a Christian right theology into schools. And so we have to get him out, because he is standing on the education committee saying the Rockland School Board is the model that he wants to have for the nation. He has hauled up school teachers from Berkeley and said, why are your diversity programs corrupting children? He has said that DEI is the next front of evil in this country. And so he is somebody who is actively dangerous. He will be a champion of Project 2025. He describes Jim Jordan as his political mentor. He brought Jim Jordan to Roseville. I brought Adam Schiff to Roseville. And so we are on the opposite sides of democracy with this guy. And so if our children are going to grow up safe, accepted, with the healthcare and the tools that they need, we need to make sure that Kiley is out of office, because he is pushing policies that are traumatizing children, that are taking away from their education, that are risking their mental health. And I am here to stop him. And so I am grateful to have all of you with me. I want you to know that I will be a champion for children in Congress. And I am excited to partner with all of you and help uplift the next generation when I get to Congress. So thank you for helping me get there. Thank you for your support. And let's get out there and save democracy.
That's wonderful. And I know Matthew is going to take some questions. But we are a little over time. On the other hand, our other congressional candidate has not. Oh, he's just entering the room right now. Let's take a moment. Matthew, why don't you take this for a minute or two, and then we will move on.
Sure. So yeah, first of all, thank you so much for what you said about wildfire. And just as we're chatting today, let's keep Butte and Tehama counties in our thoughts and our prayers, because they're really kind of going through. Who's the organizing manager for the northern area to the chat. She's just been such a phenomenal help to us up here. And I see Madam Carolyn Fowler, our our party controller, is here as well with her hand up. So I'll be very quick. We met way back in 2017 at the Summit Arena Summit in Phoenix. So it's really good to see you again. So you would represent a district that has a portion of highly rural and agricultural areas. Tell us what your plans are to advance rural broadband, 5G coverage, and other connectivity issues. This is a highly important thing and thing that we talk about a lot in our caucus here for our youth, because during the pandemic, for example, kids were sitting in McDonald's parking lots, well, just to get online, because um, uh, they had such unreliable connectivity. The Infrastructure Act that Biden has gotten through has money for this, but oftentimes it goes through the channels and rural areas get left behind as they focus more on broadband equity in urban areas. So what is your plan to continue to push for rural broadband, mobile coverage, and other infrastructure for our more remote youth while you're in Congress?
Thanks, Matthew, and thanks for all the work you're doing on that. Rural broadband is vital. We had the Rural Electrification Act, almost a century ago, and because we recognized that our economy only functioned if we had electricity. It's the same with broadband. We all know this intuitively, and there is actually enough fiber that's put under the freeway between Roseville and Reno right now under Highway 80 that could power the entire Sierra with broadband. So this isn't necessarily a physical infrastructure problem. What's preventing us from connecting the last mile is some of the outdated laws from the 20s that still dictate how and where competition goes and how they can connect. So we do need to put sort of the muscle behind it in terms of resources and dollars, but we also need to make sure that the regulatory space and that the legislative space isn't causing weird distortions, right? Truckee's utility wasn't able to connect to that public broadband because it was seen as unfair competition. And so what happened is that Silicon Valley, which was starting to push closer to Sacramento, and then it was going up into the foothills where people could work remote and be in beautiful areas, it skipped and they went to Reno. And so you had an entire economic driver leave the Sierra foothills behind. And so one of the things I was very good at on wildfire work in California was asking, how can we move faster, right? I posed a question to all of the departments. What would make us get these dollars, this $3 billion initiative on the ground within 4 weeks of getting the funding? Like, what could we do? And we changed state contracting process. We changed our environmental review processes. We changed our grant timelines. So we actually diagnosed the bureaucratic hurdles because we recognized a wildfire wasn't waiting for our budget cycles. And so we diagnosed that, put the tools we needed into the legislation directly. I would propose doing something similar for broadband, identifying exactly where it's getting stuck and work to unstick it, because in addition to like children's education and access to learning, we're also seeing healthcare being impacted because you're having elderly people who live in these communities not able to get telemedicine and access to their doctors, which means you're not getting early diagnoses of issues and people are only going in when it becomes a crisis. So it impacts every level.
I don't want to be rude. This is so important, but it's so important. We want to move on to dialing. So let us, Matthew, do you want to wrap up? I think Matthew might be frozen.
I'm done unless we want to go to Madam Carolyn Fowler.
Yes, Ms. Fowler, can we hear briefly?
I'll be brief, but I'm sure our next candidate down there, Mike Levin, understands. Let me say, Jessica, I've been with Jessica. If you can't tell from the responses of this candidate what a significant difference she would make in the U.S. Congress. I don't know what else needs to happen. Not only is Jessica the right candidate, I would be remiss in not saying she's got one of our top organizers, Sue Hildebrand. They have been working feverishly in that district. That was why that campaign is what inspired me, not only because of chair of the Women's Caucus, but inspired me to, when we had the GQ summit in person, I knew we needed to have that virtual. And I was so proud of what happened the other night, Thursday night, with that virtual campaign. Jessica got a lot more volunteers, people, so all the candidates did. But this is what the work that we need to do as a party. And so not only do we need to support these candidates, we need to donate to these candidates. Doesn't matter. No amount of money is too low. I'm sure they'll tell you. But more importantly, we need to phone bank and canvas. Just everything we can do. We have the top best candidates and we can do that. So that's what I wanted to say. And Jessica, you will see me again before election. Thank
you for the work you're doing, Carolyn. Thank you all for having me. What an honor to be here with you. And what an honor to see Congressman Levin. So I'll let you take it from here. But Congressman Levin was one of my early super supporters. We ran together in 2018. So what an honor to be on the ballot with you again.
The feeling is mutual.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Morse and Mr. Levin.